Hello everyone, welcome to Narayan IAS, and as a part of daily news analysis, we bring the 5 most important articles to you from The Hindu and Indian Express. And in continuation of the same series, today's 5 articles are: number 1, meaty Koki conflict. In light of what Chief Minister of Manipur has said, that in search for resolution, we will not compromise the territorial integrity of Manipur. Second, we will discuss the Iran-Israel conflict, especially what options are left with Israel because of escalation of conflict. Third, we will discuss the heat action plan, especially when temperature has started rising in India from the February onwards. Fourth, we will discuss India's green credit program and how it can help in India's ecosystem restoration. And lastly, we will discuss that how farmers can benefit from agroforestry. And once we are done with this, we will discuss the prelims and main questions on the same articles. So let's start with first topic, that is peace talk cannot compromise territorial integrity, which is said by the Chief Minister of Manipur. The question that arises is why are we talking about this particular topic? Reason is, when you understand this one, you will realize that Manipur conflict is inherently a tribal conflict, and UPSC is always interested in such questions. Like per se, you will see in 2020 itself, the UPSC asked question regarding the tribal, that examine the uniqueness of tribal knowledge system and when compared to mainstream knowledge and culture system. So this is the undertone of this question is relatively positive, but UPSC is more interested in issue that tribals are going through because for a really long time they're suffering from multiple issues. An example is question number 2, which was asked in 2017 to 2016. You can see that the question is, what do you understand about scheduled tribe? Examine the dilemma related to development of tribes in India. So this was a question asked in UPSC where it asked the definition of scheduled tribe and what is the dilemma that policymaker or administrators suffer when they want to address the challenges when related to issues of the tribe. So issue is inherently given in the dealt in the question. Third question, which is more direct, is that what are the major socio-economic problem faced by the scheduled caste? And it's generally this question is also scheduled tribe as well, and point out criteria for diagnosis and suggesting remedial measure. So this question can also be framed from the perspective of scheduled tribe. So for that reason, we need to understand what are the issues that are faced by the scheduled tribe. Here, we will focus more on the tribes of the Manipur. And why that is in news? Because recently the Chief Minister of Manipur said that though we want a resolution of the conflict that is undergoing in Manipur, but that resolution should not come at the cost of territorial integrity of the state. So before we understand this, we need to understand what is Manipur conflict. Now, to understand this, you need to understand number 1, geography, number 2, history, number 3, demography, number 4, polity, number 5, economy of the Manipur, and then only you can understand the why Manipur is so much, most of the time in turmoil. To begin with, let's start with geography. That is, Manipur is divided geographically into 2 regions. So Manipur has actually 16 districts, and these are divided into 2 regions. Number 1 is the valley region and number 2 is the hilly region. Okay. Here you so this one, you can see, valley region is generally at the center of the state and hilly region is the one which is surrounding the valley. You should also understand that this valley region constitute only 10% of the Manipur's entire state area or entire landmass. So valley region is only 10% area. On the other hand, this particular hill region is actually 90% area. So once you understood the geography, let's move on to demography. And now considering the demography of the Manipur, Manipur is divided into 2 regions, the tribal area and the non-tribal area. The non-tribal Meitei dominated population constitutes nearly 60% of the Manipur population. So non-tribal population is what? 60%. Meiteis are generally considered as the non-tribal population. They constitute 60% of Manipur population, and they reside in the valley area. So valley area is dominated by the non-tribal population. So remember that valley area is dominated by the non-tribal Meitei population, which constitute the 60% of the entire state. On the other hand, the tribal population or recognized tribes like Kuki, Zo, and even Naga, they constitute 35 to 40% of the entire population, and they reside in the hilly region. Non-tribal Meitei population lives in the valley region, and the tribal 30 to 45% of the population lives in the hilly region. Now, next stage is to understand the political scenario. Political scenario suggests that out of 60 MLA, Manipur has a legislative assembly with the members with a 60 member. Out of 60 MLAs, the non-tribal Meeti constitute 40 MLAs. So Meeti, 40 MLA are represented by Meeti. On the other hand, the 20 MLA have the tribal population, scheduled tribes like Kuki and Zo. Now, economically also, the valley region is more prosperous. More job and employment opportunities are found over there. More educational opportunities are found over there. On the other hand, that is not the case for the tribal region. In fact, there are more poor job, poor employment opportunities are there. The education is also not very good. And also, often the tribal societies of the hilly region, they accuse the valley population that the most of the budget or the economic developmental project goes to the valley and they do not come to the hilly region. Now, this configuration is responsible for the overall conflict in Manipur. Why? Because according to Kukis have resentment that Meetis, which constitute 65% of the population, hold disproportionate control over the economy and political resources. Because despite being 60% of the population, they have nearly 70% representation in the Legislative Assembly. Number two, most of the economic and developmental projects often go to them. They also believe that Meeti language is part of the state's aid schedule. They take the benefit of the various development initiative like the SC, ST and EWS status. So Kukis and Zo have resentment against Meeti being prosperous, Meeti being had greater political resources and Meeti being more powerful. On the other hand, Meeti lay other accusations against the Kukis. Now Meeti say that we, despite being 65% of the population that you have said, we reside only 10% of the area. Valley is only 10% of the area, right? We live in only valley and we have only 10% of the area. And in addition to that, they say that there is a shrinking Imphal Valley. Now, what is the concept of shrinking Imphal Valley? Now, according to this, Meeti says that Meetis can only reside in valley. They cannot go to the hill due to the scheduled tribe protection that is given to the hilly population. Remember, scheduled tribes protection is given to the hilly population by which the people from valley or non-tribal people cannot buy land in the hills. So, Meetis cannot go to the hill and buy the land. On the other hand, this hilly population can easily come to the valley and buy land over there. So, this one-way transaction is possible. Hilly people can come to the valley and buy the land. But valley people cannot go to the hill and buy the land. And remember, in 10% valley area, 65% population arrive. Whereas in case of hilly, which constitute 90% of the area, 35% of the population arrive. So, Meetis have significant resentment against that. On the top of it, the resentment of Meeti rise against the kind of the changing scenario. Changing scenario in terms of number one, as a result of illegal immigration of people from the neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar and Nepal, Meetis are saying the demography is not changing against the Meeti in the Manipur state and which is resulting in marginalization of Meeti, for which a data of census 2011 is given as a substantiating fact. Now, it says that before 1951, Meetis constituted around 59% of the state population, nearly 60% of state population. But according to census 2011, they constitute only 44% of the entire population, and reason being rising immigrants that are coming from Nepal, Bhutan, and generally they're even Kukis, because Kukis are spread across northeastern state. They're not only in Manipur, they're even other state and even the other country as well. Like they are in Myanmar, they're in other neighboring countries too, which scares the Meeti. So Meetis are scared of losing their political clout into the in the particular state. So both the tribals have their own conflicting scenario. Now the entire scenario where already fuel was there, the fire was given by the judgment of the High Court. Now, judgment of the High Court supported the Meetis' claim because Meeti wanted scheduled tribe status. Meeti said, we also want scheduled tribe status so that we can also buy land in hilly area, because right now we cannot live in only 10% of the area. Now, High Court High Court supported this and even directed Manipur government to include the Meetis in the scheduled tribe category. So you see, the fuel was already there because of the existing dimension. The fire was given by the High Court, which supported the Metis claim. Now, cookies grew more resentment against this because they thought after this they will lose control over two things. Number one is land, and number two, jobs. Because scheduled tribe status give the reservation to the scheduled tribes in the employment market, especially in the government job. Now they thought they will lose the job. At same point of time, land as well, because it was scheduled tribe status that was protecting the hilly areas to be occupied by the valley region. So that is this is what cookies thought. So they were uneasy about this. Along with that, they were not happy with the Manipur government's aid. Manipur government was deciding to come up with NRC, National Register of Citizen, in order to remove the illegal immigrants from the cities. So which created lot of unsettlement with the Kuki people and led to the violence that you saw in the news recently. Now, if you see, overall, what can you see? There is a deep distrust in between the two communities. You can't say that the demands of any of the one community is illegitimate. But but at same point of time, they cannot ignore the demand of other communities. So what is the solution that they can come up in there? Number one, this deep mistrust has to be dealt with, because mistrust is so deep that people do not, that the people who live, or the citizens who live in Manipur, they don't even trust the law enforcement as an agency. So where should we begin with? Number one, we should begin with building the trust. So here, when you are going to give the solution to the particular question, to particular dilemma that is in our society, number one, start with the solution like there is a need of collective effort to deal with the mistrust. Second is, there is need to retrieve the looted weapons as well, because mistrust is one thing, peaceful protest is another thing, but the kind of communal violence that we saw in Manipur was actually unacceptable level, and which leads to the lawlessness as well. And that is possible because of the increasing supply of the weapon in Manipur, because the borders are porous and the security is not very stable over there. That's why it's important that short-term solution in terms of the retrieving the looted weapons and closing the border further for the smuggling is a very immediate solution that is required over there. Third is involving civil society in peace building, because only the government cannot do so, especially when the two communities do not trust the law enforcement agencies as well. So there has to be representation of both the communities. We can provide a platform where they can talk, and peaceful solution we can come up with a peaceful solution. Fourth is initiate inter-community political dialogue. Like I said, the representative of two communities and a political dialogue is needed. Next is, there should be a grievance redressal committee that deals with that try to resolve the existing issue. At same point of time, create a parity in development, because already the root cause from which the problem arises was the fear of loss of job and the loss of land and loss of unequal prosperity in both the region. So you need to deal with the root cause that requires the parity in development and deal with the weaker section of society. So with this, we are done with the first section. We will come up with the main question on that. Now let's move to the second article, that is inflicting retaliation without escalation, in which we are talking about Iran-Israel conflict. So this article we will talk about that. And why are we talking about this? Because Iran is very important country to us. We want to maintain a good diplomatic relationship with Israel. And you can see that in the question that is asked by the UPSC as well. Like in 2018, it directly asked that India's relationship with Israel have of late acquired depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back. So Israel is important to us, and we don't want to go back on a good relationship that we have maintained with Israel. So then why Israel is in news? Because of Iran-Israel conflict. Recently, the conflict has escalated, and from proxy war to now they have moved to the proper direct war with each other. Now, to understand this entire scenario, we need to understand the nature of Iran-Israel conflict. Now, Iran-Israel conflict started from 1948 itself. Remember, there are certain dates that you have to particularly keep in mind. 1948 is a date when Israel actually came into being. Israel as a country was properly formed with its own government and its defined territory as well. Though the territory is changing after that, but it formed its own government. From 1948 to 1979, you will not see much escalation conflict or good behavior in between the two countries. There was a neutral stance you can see in between the two. Like starting from 1948, Arab-Israel war itself, when the Islamic countries were again Israeli countries, you did not see significant participation of Israel because Israel by then, till 1979, was under the influence of Shah dynasty. Remember, 1979 is a very important mark for us, a date for us, because till then, Iran was under the control of a Shah dynasty, which was basically a monarchical system till 1979. So during 1948 war, Iran did not show any kind of such interest in Israel. So Israel did not, neither it attacked it, or nor it shows any kind of discontent with the entire situation. But during 1979, Israel went to a Islamic revolution. Now, as a result of this revolution, Israel changed from a monarchy to a democracy, which is considered as a good development, but at same point of time, from relatively secular country, relatively, I'm not saying entirely, relatively secular country, it became more Islamic. Now, since it became Islamic country, it shared the interest with the other Islamic nation, and now it did not support Israel at all. So from 1979, we see a particular watershed movement after which Iran-Israel relationship does not see a good times. So now you can see the data that I have already taught you, that Shah Pahlavi dynasty was the one which was ruling Israel before 1979. And after 1979, it became Islamic country led by Ayatollah Khomeini, which immediately severed its ties with the Israel. So you can see the Israel-Iran relationship are going to see a turbulence after that. Now, Iran, what it did was, even after this, you will see one more thing till now is that Iran never directly attacked Israel, like other countries like Egypt did that, Syria did that, other country did, but Iran never did it. Iran, in fact, actually utilized a proxy war. That means it created its own entity or its own proxy to attack the Israel. Like in case of India, Pakistan does not directly attack India for quite a long time, but it had created its proxies like Taliban or any other entities are there which are specifically created in order to attack India. Similarly, Iran does the same thing to Israel as well. So it has its proxy. Now you should remember what are the name of the proxy. Number one is Lebanese Hezbollah. Hezbollah is basically the proxy of Iran, which operates from Lebanon and continuously attack the Israel. Second, Iran provide a lot of support to the Hamas as well. Now, Hamas, is a particular entity which has engaged in a violence and conflict against Israel. So instead of directly attacking, Israel has given financial and weapon kind of support to these kind of entities. Now, in 1980, even during the Iran-Iraq war, Israel provided intelligence and military support to Iraq because there was indirect retaliation that was going on part of Israel as well. If Iran was using proxy entities, then Israel was supporting the enemy countries of the Iran, which is like Iran is a famous example for it. Now, another very interesting case study in the entire situation is the nuclear operation of the Iran. Israel was never happy with the nuclear operation of Iran. Like of all the other countries, Israel was always on the opposite side because it would have increased the capacity of Iran to retaliate more and more. So when Iran was engaging in nuclear advancement in 1990 to 2011, Israel was not happy with this. In fact, Israel came up with US in order to debilitate the entire nuclear program of the Iran. The famous example here is a Stuxnet, a wire which was developed by the US and Israel together in order to cause a significant damage to the Iranians' uranium enrichment program. And if you remember, the entire JCPOA program that came in order to bring down the nuclear program of Iran, Israel was a greater part of it. Israel was behind the curtain supporting the US and other countries so that they can bring down the nuclear program of Israel. So such kind of indirect war was going on between the two countries for a long time. And an example of this is also cyber attacks, assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, or airstrike sabotage of the program. So there was always some kind of like indirect war going on in between the two countries. Now, what changed recently? From the proxy war that was going on in between the two countries, now the war is becoming direct. Now, how? How it is becoming direct? Now, October 7, 2023 is a date you remember when Hamas attacked Israel and actually caused various civilian casualty. Again, on 1st April, because Iran was indirectly supporting Hamas on this particular initiative, Israel actually directly attacked Iranian consulate in Damascus, Iranian embassy in Damascus, which is considered as a direct attack on Israel. Now, as a result, Iran waited for the time, and finally on 13 April 2024, Iran retaliated by causing a drone and a missile attack on Israel, which is called as Operation True Promise with the code name of Ya Rasulallah. So you're getting the difference. So there are certain dates you remember. 1948, beginning of Israel. Then 1978, neutrality. From 1979 itself, Iran become Islamic and become an opposite comes to the opposition of Israel. And after from 1979 till 2024, you see a proxy war in between the two, where Iran uses its proxies and Israel uses its supporting countries like US and other nation in order to bring down its nuclear and other program. Now, finally, the article talks about that if, as a result of such escalation, this particular attempt that is done by Iran is considered as an attack on sovereignty in Israel. So definitely, the Prime Minister of Israel would not want to back down, because if it doesn't do anything, it will be considered as weak in the entire equation. But at the same point of time, can Israel actually afford a full-fledged war? Given a scenario, there is already a kind of a war that is going on in between the Israel and Palestine. And Israel is already in the global media news for that particular reason. Now, Israel, we need to keep a tight watch on that, what's going to happen. But how is it going to impact India, the entire Iran-Israel conflict? Remember, number one, since Iran-Israel conflict is going to destabilize the Middle East, already Middle East, which is in so much of turmoil, recently the Red Sea conflict is going on over there. If it goes further into turmoil, it is going to threaten India's energy security. Because remember, India is dependent on Middle East for 85% of its crude oil import. So if the conflict happens, this import is going to be impacted. Now, oil will become expensive. Import will be impacted. The disruption of oil supply will be impacted, and ultimately the oil prices will rise. And oil is basically the fuel for all the transportation. The transportation of every commodity will become expensive, causing an inflation in India, which we do not want. Second is, it will risk India's Indian diaspora. Now, according to several estimates, it says that in Middle East, nearly 90 lakh Indian people lives over there, of which 18,000 Indian lives in Israel and 5 to 10,000 people live in Iran alone. That means the country that are being directly impacted. If a direct war happens in between the two, the civilian casualty will definitely will be the case, and Indians will also be impacted in the entire scenario, and we have to evacuate them. Third is a geopolitical consideration, which is actually very important in the entire equation, but I'll discuss that later, because it is a very big, because this topic is bigger than the other one. Fourth is a counter-terrorism operation. Both Iran and Israel are part of India's counter-terrorism operation. Like, Israel provides us effective technology, newly developed technology, defense weapon as well, in order to deal with the terrorism. On the other hand, Iran is India's partner to deal with terrorism, because Iran come together against Pakistan, which is actually breeding Taliban in its own home ground, in its own background. Neither Iran is happy with this, nor India is happy with this. So if the relationship gets turmoil and we have to take side, India will not benefit from the scenario. Okay, now the example I gave, the proxy war that comes from the Pakistan to India, they are named as Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed. Now, in addition to that, it impacts India's IMEC corridor, or India Middle East European corridor, that is being conceptualized by various nations, and India is a great part to this in order to promote the more trade and economic growth and development in the region. So this is also going to be impacted. But let's just come back to the most important topic, that this is going to impact the geopolitical consideration, especially given the fact that India is going to be a part of a triangular equation now. India wants good relationship with Iran. Here is our country, India. It wants good relationship with Iran. It wants good relationship with Israel as well. And it doesn't want to take sides. And often it has to, because if war happens, people are asked to take sides. India doesn't want to take sides. This will create problem for India as well. Take for example how Israel is important for us. Number one, in terms of trade and commerce. Recently, the bilateral trade between the two countries has grown to the level of $6.35 billion. Now, that will be impacted if the relationship soared because of any reasons, if the two countries ask us to take side. Second is, there is so much of defense technological cooperation between the two countries. Like India is a major importer of Israeli defense technology like Falcon AWACS or Heron drones. India is also importing technologies like India and Israel are cooperating space technology. Like Israel launched satellites like TechSAR and Reset of India. India-Israel Industrial R&D and Technology Innovation Fund I4F is also being established in order to promote the cooperation, that is also going to be impacted. The energy cooperation is also going to be impacted because both countries has signed exploration license in Tamar and Leviathan gas field diversification of energy sector. For the sake of diversification of energy sector, India has got the license for particular reason. So soaring of relationship is going to impact India as well. India and its interest too. And Iran is also very important country to India. Like first I talk about number one in terms of energy security. Iran is a major supply of crude oil to India, and that you can remember from the fact that while sanctions were imposed on Iran and lot of pressure was imposed on India as well to cut off the relationship with Iran, we did not do that because we wanted a continuous supply of crude oil from Iran. So if we have to choose anyone, our energy security is going to be impacted. Second is geopolitical concern. There is a shared, like I talked about, there is a shared concern among Iran and India regarding the terrorism that comes from the Pakistan that impacts both Iran, Afghanistan, as well as India as well. So if India lose Iran, it's going to impact a security concern as well. Next is the strategic location of Iran. We have always known that, and that is the reason from Iran, like if you see the map, from Iran, we are trying to provide economic corridor or economic route to Afghanistan, because from directly Pakistan, we can't do that. But Iran is considered as that point by which we can supply enough supplies to Afghanistan with which we want to maintain good relationship. So, Iran is also important in terms of the strategic location, where it is actually very important for the development of Chabahar port, and it is a gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Thus, we cannot afford to lose any of those countries. So what can India do? India need to keep tight watch on that. India can provide platform for the both countries to negotiate, and India should try to avoid, convince the two countries to avoid the full-fledged escalation of war in between the two countries. Moving ahead to next article, that is India's heat action plan. So in this article, we will discuss about India's heat action plan and why this is important. Because there was a question in UPSC, and UPSC focuses on that, like urban flood, heat waves, which are recently emerging environmental threats that are concerning Indian and global citizen. Now, what was the question? Discuss a recent measure initiated in disaster management by the government of India, departing from earlier reactive approach. So, government is coming up with new initiative to deal with that. So, why are we talking about heat waves? Number one, because this year, heat alerts started from February itself, which is like strange because February is generally considered as a colder month in Indian calendar. But started from there itself with the temperature elevated more than 3 to 5 degrees Celsius than the normal level. So which was concerning. And IMD has predicted increased frequency and severity of heat waves in eastern and southern India. Concerning that, heat wave has become an important topic across India among the environmentalists. So, number one, what is heat waves? Heat wave is nothing. It is a condition where the air temperature rises above the normal. So, air temperature, it rises above the normal and reaches to such a level where it becomes fatal to human body. So, temperature surrounding is rises to such a level, it becomes fatal to human body is called as heat waves. Now, you may have seen that, like generally we say that whenever the loo are impacting the northern India, you can see a lot of people vomit, suffer from diarrhea, suffer from heat strokes, suffer from blood pressure and multiple diseases as well. So this is a condition where the rise in temperature becomes fatal to the human being. So that's the definition of heat waves. Now, quantitatively, it is defined in terms of temperature. When the temperature rise above a certain threshold level, So temperature has to rise above certain threshold level, and this actually varies across region to region. Like for say that the threshold level in case of plain is 40 degrees Celsius. So people in plain are more tolerant and are more adapted to rise in temperature because they see generally higher temperature. So their threshold is 40 degrees Celsius. People in coastline have 37 degrees Celsius, where people in hills have lesser tolerance to 30 degrees Celsius. You may see if your roommate or your friend is a Kashmiri or someone from the northeast, they easily feel the heat and they would like to turn on the AC. So heat tolerance for a body varies from the region to region. So that's why we have a different definition for the for the three reason based on temperature. It's not the same. And severity is defined based on variation or based on deviation from this normal. So more you move away and up, so up top on this, the chances of heat wave increases. Per se, for a normal heat wave, the departure can only be 4.5 to 6.4. Like from 40 to temperature become 46 per se. From 37, it become 43, 45 per se. Or from 30, it become 36 per se. Then accordingly, in hilly area, temperature when it reaches 36 degrees Celsius, it is considered as heat wave. Whereas it may not be heat wave in the plain area. Another thing is, this is normal heat wave. Then there is a definition of severe heat wave as well, when the temperature, the variation become more than 6.4 degrees Celsius. So if temperature become 47 or 48 degrees Celsius, then it is a condition of severe heat wave in the northern India, or maybe in the plain area or southern India. Alternatively, actual maximum temperature exceed 45-47 degree is also considered as a severe heat wave. Now let's understand how do we tackle the heat waves. The government, in order to deal with this, has actually come up with the heat action plan. That's why heat action plan we're discussing this article. Now, what is heat action plan? It is basically mix of a clubbing of various initiative that the government takes to deal with the heat waves, and which comes in 3 steps. Number 1 is preparation, that before heat wave hit a region, government needs to be prepared. Number 2 is adaptation. If it's already there, government need to adapt. And second is response. If it has caused fatality to the human life of human being, government needs to respond immediately. Per se, in Delhi recently, or in past, when the heat action has impacted the particular state, it has closed down its school. So these are the action response mechanism that the state comes with. So what the recently HAP does is, it focus more on preparation. It focus more on preparedness. Now, preparedness include adaptive and mitigating as well, so that it doesn't impact our country as much. For this, a National Disaster Management Authority and IMD as collaborating with 23 states to develop with the heat action plan. Now, general pattern of heat action plan include number 1, we worked with preparedness. Now, since we said preparedness is our main aspect, so we focus on preparedness. That include profiling, where we map the vulnerable area. So the regional heat profile, we create a regional heat profile. Second, for the profiling, we use historical data as well and temperature trend over the period of time. Based on that, we profile it, or we create a hotspot for that particular area or particular region, particular state, or even overall nation. Second is, we engage in vulnerability assessment. So first is profiling, second is vulnerability assessment, which identify the region needing immediate attention. That I call as hotspot. Okay, first you do profiling. Okay, this temperature may not be that impacted, but this will be more. So then we do the vulnerability assessment as well. Third is it recommends action for mitigating and outlining roles and responsibility of various government. So it will give now action plan how to mitigate it. At same point of a time, it identify actors as well who will perform their role. It's not that action is there and nobody knows who to do what. No, the same point of time identify the department which will work on it and what will be its role. Okay, so that's how you work on heat action plan. Number 1, you work on preparedness. And preparedness require for you to have an action plan for mitigation, and at same point of time identify the department and their roles as well. Now, what are the recommendation of heat action plan? On the side of preparedness, it talks about early warning system. There has to be a system that engages in utilize forecast or early warning system to engage to actually warn public as well as authority about the impending heat wave which may impact them. Second is educating. Public need to be educated what could be the positive source, what could be the consequences of heat wave and how they can protect it. Like WHO talks about the heat wave is something that is not to be taken not seriously. It has to be taken seriously, and then drink more water, utilize ORS, stay indoors, are certain actually guidelines that are given by the various international organization. Third is it also talks about establishing a heat shelters and cooling centers to ensure the availability of clean drinking water. Like I said, drinking as much as water is very important so that it keeps you hydrated and protect you against the heat wave. Fourth is equipping hospital to manage with the influx of patient, which we actually be dealing with heart related or blood pressure related issues. Next is implementing urban planning strategies like planting trees, using heat resistance material and cool refining technologies. So these are all part of preparedness or mitigating, preventing. Where you because urban heat island is a major problem of rising heat waves in India, where the natural environment is being taken away and it is being replaced by the artificial environment. And what is artificial environment? It's like it's more surface, which is more vulnerable to absorbing heat and then retaining it. So that's why we're talking about inducing more plant, more heat resistant material in a construction phase itself. Now, what are the challenges that we face in implementation of the heat action plan? Number one, lack of local contextualization, where we have created a particular strategy, but we forget that number one, the threshold of heat wave is different from different region. And this is not only in terms of plain, hilly, or other areas. It is also in terms of whether it is an urban area or rural area. That consideration is not taken by the heat action plan. Per se, in same hilly area or in same plain area, a rural area will do better than the urban area. Reason? Because urban areas have heat island, like I talked about, where the natural environment is replaced by artificial environment, which makes it more vulnerable to heat island. And such considerations, such minute details are not taken into consideration in this recent heat action plan. Second is inconsistency of the method. So most heat action plan include vulnerability assessment, but these assessments do not include often use inconsistent method. Like one particular state is using other method, other state is using other method, which is causing exclusion and inclusion area in various states. So there is a need to come up with a comprehensive climate risk assessment approach that can accurately determine the likelihood of heat waves in a various areas and assess the exposure of people. So in order to identify area as well as people, we need to have some standard mechanism by which you determine who is going to be more vulnerable. Next is neglect of the vulnerable population. Okay, keep in mind the vulnerable population is a targeted group in this particular project, but when it comes to implementation level, the tailored intervention which can take into account the local factor are often lacking. So when the people who are going to be more vulnerable are people living on street, people living in slum, people living on the pavements, they are more vulnerable. They are not very taken care of. So especially the informal worker, where due to informal working condition, they are very more vulnerable, but they are not taken into account, or like the intervention, the last mile intervention doesn't take care of them. Next is resource allocation. There is a lot of discrepancy in budget allocation and limited financial mechanism. We talk about like this, most of the things are in air because we talk about this is the percentage we have to give in order to protect these people, but at same point of time, this is the amount of budget we allocate to them. So that is another problem which required the more dialogue and necessary intervention in that. Next is siloed approach. We have stand-alone HAP. Not only in terms of that we have a different measure of assessment, which is already vary, but approach. One state do not or one particular department do not integrate or do not maintain a contact with the other department. And often this doesn't help the proper integrated management of HOP. So with limited resource, there is a need of integration with the broader climate adaptation plan to enhance effectiveness and ensure better data collection. We cannot deal with heat wave as a stand-alone entity. It is a result of larger climate change that entire country or the world is experiencing right now. So we need to integrate this heat wave prevention with the climate change as well, where we need to talk about heat waves at the larger level too, at the global platform or even a national level. Now, way forward, what can we do? Number one, when it comes to assessment, like I talk about, there has to be a need of local assessment where you keep in mind the rural and urban factor and other water bodies or topography that are actually impacting the particular region. Second is there has to be standardized method. At same point of time, localization should go with the standardization, especially in terms of identifying vulnerable areas and population both. And also this has to be integrated with the larger climate change that is impacting the world. So this is what it talks about. We need to transit to climate risk assessment and hotspot mapping to improve the vulnerability identification and targeted intervention. Next, targeted intervention is need of the hour, where we can have a tailor-made intervention to deal with the vulnerable section, which acknowledge also the socio-economic differences to ensure the equitable protection to the vulnerable population. Next is improve human resources, especially for the people who are working with the heat action plan. There is not enough allocation to them. So what we can do is we can create a dedicated budget. Instead of giving meager allocation to HEP, there can be dedicated budget which is dedicated to heat action plan, especially given the fact it is impacting us every year and at a larger scale. Overall, integration is the need of the hour, be that department, be that between state, be that between different HEPs, or be that with the larger initiative of preventing the climate change. Now let's start with third article, that is Center tweaks Green Credit Program System to focus on ecosystem restoration. Now why are we talking about this? Because UPSC is interested in initiative like this, and you may think that generally you can expect a prelims question on that. But this was a question that was asked in U 2021 and it is a mains question. Now read the question along with me. Explain the purpose of Green Grid Initiative launched at the World Leader Summit of COP26 UN Climate Conference in Glasgow in November 2021. When was this idea first floated in International Solar Alliance? So you see, you may have expected prelims question on that, but UPSC has gone far beyond and is nowadays asking even mains question on such particular article as well. So let's start with our news, our article. Why are we talking about this? Because recently Ministry of Environment had made some guidelines and is promoting Green Credit Initiative as a mechanism for the ecosystem restoration. So first we need to understand what is Green Credit Initiative or Green Credit Program, and then we will discuss about what are the advantages that it can give to our country, and third we will discuss what are the challenges that we will be facing as a result of this, and then we will conclude it. Beginning with what is Green Credit Program. This is launched by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, because if this question is asked, you should know. And this was launched under the LIFE initiative. Now, you know LIFE was an initiative launched by Prime Minister of India after COP26 in order to promote a sustainable lifestyle. Under this initiative, we launched the Green Credit Initiative as well to promote sustainable and environmental sustainable living and environmental conservation. So, two objectives are there: sustainable living and environmental conservation. Okay. Now, let's start with what is the objective of this particular program. It actually does what? It encourages, number one, individual, and number two, organization to engage in reforestation of degraded land. Reforestation of degraded land. And when you do that, if any organization or entity engages in such program, it can get a what? Green credit. Right now, so for every work that you have done, something like that, you will get a green credit. Now, what is green credit? Now, green credit is a single unit of measurement. It is a unit of measurement. Right now, so it is a single unit of measurement. Here the definition is that of incentive provided for a specific activity where you engage in an activity that results in positive impact of environment. So when you engage in any activity that cause positive impact on environment, for such activity you will be given a single unit of incentive. So you do an activity and in return you are given a single unit of incentive, that is basically called as green credit. Like per se, you do a work in any home, you are paid in terms of wages for that. Here, for any activity that result in positive impact on environment, you are being given green credit. Now what is green credit? Green credit can help you take loan at a lesser rate. It can also help in many other activities also. Like for say, recently government has come up with a capping mechanism. Now what it does in a capping mechanism, in any industry is given at a cap. Like any industry cannot release more than 100 unit of CO2. I'm taking a hypothetical example. But industry has exceeded and it has released 110 unit of CO2. Now it will be punished for that. Now, how can it protect itself from such an activity? By engaging in any positive activity that helps environment, and by that they can earn basically green credit. So maybe they earn 20 unit by such activity. Maybe they engage in forestation, maybe they engaged in reducing the CO2 from an environment. As a result of that, they can evade punishment that they would have got earlier. Also, they can even sell the 10 unit that is leaving over there. If they had earned extra unit, they can sell it to other company who also want such kind of credit in order to escape the government regulation that has come. I would not say escape, but to protect themselves such kind of punishment that will come upon them. Basically, they need some time to adjust to the regulation that has come. So this has come as a mechanism by which the company can earn as well. So green credit is part of that. Now, what is the scope of such initiative? So far, 13 state and the forest department have identified 387 land parcel totaling nearly 10 to 11,000 hectare of land, which can be actually utilized in the program for the restoration of forest. So there is a huge scope for this program. Third is next is how do you apply? How does a person apply in this? What is the application process? In order to be applicable for this, a person or interested party should apply with the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, which oversee the entire program and its implementation. And the implementation is done by State Forest Department, which will do which also engage in actual forestation activities on an identified land. So if you have to get the green credit, you apply with this Indian Council of Forestry Research, and State Department, which is also responsible for application as well as monitoring the entire thing, will take care of it. Now, what is the mechanism of green credit utilization? Now, accrual of credit. How you will get the green credit is, it's not just as if you planted the tree and then immediately you will get the green credit for it. No, it is after 2 years of planting, because maybe you planted 100 saplings and only 20 survives. Giving you 100 unit credit for that doesn't make sense, right? Because it requires a lot of effort for the plant to grow. So only after 2 years of plantation, upon evaluation by ICFRE, each planted tree qualify for the 1 green credit. So here it's not based on land that you have done work on 1 hectare or 1 acre of land. No, land is not the unit. Every plant is eligible for the green credit initiative. Now, utilization. These credits serve 2 primary purposes. Number 1, it helps you in compliance with the forest law. Like organization diverting forest law for the non-forestry purpose can use this credit to compensate by providing equivalent elsewhere. Like I said, there are various laws or regulations that are given by the government, and often companies are found to be violating those or exceeding those. Not violating, I would say exceeding those. Now, in order to deal with this credit can come very handy. Like whenever a company is diverting from a non-forest to non-forest land, for say you're building a road, you're building an industry, and you have cut down the forest, it is government mandated, or government has made a regulation that you have to plant equivalent or more than that plant in some other region. So this credit can help you achieve those compliance rate as well. Second is the corporate social responsibility in environmental reporting. So if this credit is given, this can help you fulfill your CSR obligation and meet environmental, social and government's reporting requirement. Examples I've already dealt earlier. What are the activities that are part of the green cover initiative? It's like tree plantation, which will help green cover. It also helps in waste management, be that you are engaging in conservation, harvesting, or water use efficiency. Even sustainable agriculture is part of this, where natural and regenerative practices are being promoted. It promotes productivity, soil health, and even nutritional value. Adding to that, it also helps in waste management by promoting circularity. You know that many plants are responsible fixing the toxic element from the environment, and they take care of the environment. And this also promotes the sustainable water management practices. Overall, air pollution reduces down, and air quality becomes better. And mangrove, this also helps in mangrove conservation and restoration, because of course, in seaside area, we can work on the mangrove forestation as well. Overall, now they have come recent guidelines. What are the recent guidelines here? The recent guidelines suggest that ministry says that according to recent guidelines, the union government issued updated guidelines to streamline the process. Now, it has actually worked on two things. Number one, flexibility in requirement, and number two, ecosystem consideration. Now, what I mean by in terms of flexibility, earlier only the land which has per hectare 1100 trees are eligible for that. So per hectare you have to grow 1100 tree to be referred to be referred for this particular initiative. Now this has been amended. Second is ecosystem consideration. Keeping in mind that we have different kind of ecosystem and not everywhere plantation is needed. So the shrubs, herbs and grasses are also being included in the restoration effort to suit the ecosystem need. Because if you go to the Rajasthan, it's not the plantation or the tree plantation that will help. Often the shrub survives better than the tree. So that's why we have the ministry has amended the regulation in order to include these kind of categories in this as well. Okay, in terms of flexibility, we have removed the requirement of 1100 trees per hectare. Also, state are given discretionary power to specify suitable requirement if there is any other requirement. Next is what are the concern regarding that? The first and foremost concern is greenwashing. Remember when I told you that there was a ban on a country or on a particular industry that you cannot release more than 100 tons of carbons. Now, simply by actually planting forest anyway or buying credit from other companies, you're simply just buying credit from other companies can evade their responsibility. They will not work on deforestation themselves. They will just buy it from other companies. So companies may they may exaggerate their claim. Maybe they have just like 10 units they have produced, but they will say that they have 100 units of plants they have planted. So the exaggeration is another possibility, which is called as greenwashing. So exaggeration about environmental effort to improve the public image without having to do with effort. So they will not put the effort, but public image will be better. Second is token effort. So they may engage in superficial activity to earn the credit rather than implementing substantive measure to deal with environment. Third is effectiveness in emission reduction. Many experts have said that there is a limited effectiveness of green credit to deal with the emission reduction, particularly if the focus remain on activities that yield immediate credit reward rather than addressing the root cause of the emission. So many of the especially it is being said that reforestation is never as good as preventing deforestation, because natural forests have so many qualities that the artificial forest can never provide. That's the reason the root cause is preventing and being one with the environment. And maybe we are actually evading from such responsibility. So that is another concern that is raised by the various environmentalists. Another is resource allocation for monitoring. Various experts also suggest that now the state will dedicate more efforts towards the monitoring the work that is done by private entities instead of doing the reforestation themselves, instead of preventing the deforestation. So there's another concern that is raised by various experts on the particular topic. Next is need for transformative effort. Overall, critics argue that while green credit may incentivize some action, they may not drive the overall transformative change that is necessary to address the systematic environmental issue. which includes change in environment. We take our environment for granted. The companies take it for granted that environment, they are being destroying environment, the process of increasing more and more productivity. Maybe we need to promote more minimalism as well. But with the initiative like Green Credit Initiative, maybe we are not promoting sustainability and a balanced living that is required in a present scenario. So overall, what we can do is, we can also learn that this scheme is promoting holistic approach to reforestation and providing flexibility in implementation. Like we can remember, nothing is always better than anything. These companies are already engaging in lot of releasing pollutant in the environment. At least they will take some responsibility, even to earn the credit itself. Some kind of reforestation will be there, and damage for environment will come down significantly. So this is better. Along with that, we can also work on promoting environmental consciousness in the society. So that's why this scheme is also effective in terms of bringing holistic approach, providing more flexibility, and like providing more incentive for the countries to work in such direction. However, constant monitoring and evaluation is a need of the hour to ensure the program is implemented effectively. So with this, let's move to next article. Moving ahead to last article, that is how small-scale farmer can benefit from the trees on farm, or that is agroforestry. So in this article, we will talk about agroforestry because UPSC has asked question on that discuss a factor for localization of agro-based food processing industries of Northwest India. So this is something the government is often interested in. And why are we talking about that? Because this article is dedicated to agroforestry and how small-scale farmers are not able to take much benefit from it. So let's move ahead. Let's talk about what is agroforestry. First of all, agroforestry is nothing. It is integrated approach for the land use. Generally, when farmers see the land, if this is the land, they think of monocropping, like growing wheat on it in a season, and then after 6 months growing rice on it. So at the time on the land, they grow one thing. But agroforestry is not about that. It is about growing a crop, simultaneously growing plant, and also at same point of time helping the livestock as well. So 3 things come together. Number 1 is a particular crop, number 2 is a tree, and number 3 is livestock. All 3 grows together in agroforestry. And India historically is being utilizing such kind of forestry practices or farming practices in India, where there was a mix of different species of tree, crops, and animals. So the Indians have known which tree is going to be compatible with which crop, and how animal can also benefit from this. And this was helping India in multiple matters in terms of it, number 1, promoted diversity, because animal could also sustain. The birds can sustain on the plants, which is we are actually suffering from various threats in the present era. It enhanced soil fertility as well, because plants were growing for the long time and there was not much pressure from the crop again and again. And number 3, it enhanced water retention as well, because trees have greater water retention capability because of the larger root system in which they stand on. And also it provided multiple sources of income to farmer, also giving resilience to them. Because generally, if a bad weather is there and if a crop dies, the entire thing goes to a waste. Whereas in case of the agroforestry, even if the crop is impacted, first of all, crop is protected by the tree shelters. Second, even if the crop is impacted, the trees are there. The harvest from the trees can help the farmer, be that mango tree, be that any other fruit tree or any other tree that they have. So it was giving a resilience to farmer as well. So it has multiple benefits. The environment was benefiting because of biodiversity, because of the soil fertility and water retention. At same point of time, human being was benefited in terms of the rising income and income resilience as well. Now, there is example in favor of this. It is example in Tamil Nadu as well, where they were promoting, where they were utilizing agroforestry, which resulted in high profitability and environmental resilience as well. Per se, when Cyclone Gaza impacted Tamil Nadu, as a result of agroforestry, the crop of most of the farmers was safe and even their homes were safe. So that's the reason such kind of practices should be promoted in India more so. Now, agroforestry is widespread in India with the variation of tree species and the crop species based on the variation in plant water availability and the soil health conditions. Now, the agroforestry, when you see the overview of India, it is mostly practiced in Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Southern states are more into agroforestry. And in northern India, you will see Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and MP are significantly moving to agroforestry practices. And this is considered as a sustainable alternative to conventional monocropping, like I told you, which actually makes a farmer very vulnerable to climate as well as changing market condition, where for a single crop they may not have a proper prices. Now, if agroforestry is such a balm, is such a good thing, then what are the things that are preventing the development of agroforestry in India? Number one is the land holding and land tenure system itself. Now, 80% of the farmers in India, the 80% of farmers in India are what? Are basically a marginal farmer. They do not hold more than 2 hectares of land with them. So generally with such like small land holding, they are not aware about the benefit of agroforestry. So lack of awareness is one of the reason. They don't have the technical knowledge or even the capital to invest in the agroforestry, because agroforestry is actually a capital incentive initiative as well. Each sapling is expensive and you need to have a knowledge about this, as which sapling or which plant is going to be more effective in a particular area. Also, you need to have knowledge that in your land which tree is going to have a symbiotic relationship with the crop as well, because many trees and crop do not have symbiotic relationship and they hurt each other and ultimately the farmer is impacted. So agroforestry requires knowledge, it requires capital, it requires technical intervention as well, which often small farmer do not have because of small land holding and land fragmentation. So this is what article dealt the most in, that rich farmer are able to take benefit but other are not. So the problem that you can see is a lack of awareness, mostly because of small farmers, access to benefit, because the small farmer have limited access to credit and financial resources, which prevent farmer from investing in agroforestry, which is a capital intensive initiative these days. Next is land tenure system itself, because most of the farmers are small. They actually taking land on lease from other farmers, especially the absentee farmers which are actually working in city but have given their land on lease to other farmers. Now in such a case, what happened? They do not have land security because they lend lease on yearly basis. On the other hand, agroforestry require at least minimum 5 years of investment, because that is the amount of time needed for a plant to grow and then start giving fruits as well. Especially when we come to the plantation of the plantation of the trees, per se bananas and oranges or apple, they give benefit, they start giving benefit after 4 or 5 years, and then they give benefits for longer years, per se 10 years. But for that long period of time, generally farmers do not have land, especially the small farmers do not have land. They don't have often land security. That's the right word. So it discourages the farmer to invest in agroforestry. And remember, 80% of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmer. In addition to that, there is a limited market access, because if this is a farmer, then there is a local market, a local mandi, where generally the monocrops or the crops are being sold, but the products of agroforestry have a different market often. And it requires a local farmer to have number one, knowledge, and number two, transportation access to reach this particular region. And generally, the small farmers, the local farmer, do not have that either knowledge where there is a good market and good prices, or the proper transport and connectivity to actually transport their agro-produce, and they end up getting the lesser money even than the monocrop in their particular area, whereas generally they are the expensive one. So that is another concern, that is market accessibility. The next is competition from the conventional agriculture, especially in terms of conventional agriculture, the cropping, the small crop, you easily get the return. It's a short-term return within 6 months, within an year. Whereas in the case of agroforestry, it requires patience, it requires longer investment, which generally small farmers doesn't have. So there is a competition for conventional agriculture as well in terms of cost and times. The small costs, they require lesser cost and they require lesser time to get the return. Next is policy and regulatory constants. Generally, government has placed regulation on multiple crops as well, that you cannot grow sandals, especially red sandals, or maybe other crops as well. Especially for some crops, you need to get a license from the government, and in event of such regulatory cumbersome process, many farmers resort to not actually engaging in that. So the policy and regulatory constraint is another problem. So which creates, especially in terms of the land use, tree ownership, and the environmental clearances, which is preventing the development of agroforestry in India, which require, so thus, in order to deal with such lacuna, we need a multifaceted approach from the policy, capacity building of farmers, market development, research and extension services, and financial incentive to encourage farmer to take and sustain agroforestry. Okay, so this is the suggestion that is being given. Overall, what are other incentive that in the approaches that the government has come up with? Government has also come up with National Agroforestry Policy, which was formulated in 2014, specifically to promote agroforestry in order to enhance tree cover, improve ecosystem, increase farmer income. Tree cover, ecosystem, and farmer. It has three particular objectives. Second is National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture. It also provides financial and technical support for the people who wants to go in agroforestry. Third is Pradhan Mantri Kisi Sisai Yojana, which is focused on providing irrigation facilities to the farmer. It also focuses on agroforestry as well. And then lastly, the next is the National Bamboo Mission, which promote the bamboo cultivation for economic and environmental benefits. Remember, in agroforestry, the two things come together: the profit and environmental sustainability. So for the same process, the bamboo, which is an essential element of the agroforestry, is promoted in the National Bamboo Mission. So this also is an example of that. Next is R&D, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and various state agriculture universities are focusing on developing suitable agroforestry models, improving crop-tree interaction, and enhancing productivity and sustainability. So all these initiatives reflect how government is focused on agroforestry. But what this article talk about is there is a need of more tailor-made approach and more education of the small farmer if government is more dedicated about the agroforestry. So with this, we are done with today's article, and then we will discuss the questions on this. Now, let's start with prelims and main question based on that. The first question is, number one, which of the following initiative has been introduced by the government of India to promote the agroforestry? Now, if you remember, it's not Swachh Bharat Mission, it's not Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it's not Urban Livelihood Mission because they're dedicated to housing and livelihood. It's specifically National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, and I told you agroforestry is part of the agriculture, so you can even from there you can come up with a conclusion. So the answer to this is going to be A. Next question is, which of the following country does not share a land border with Iran? You need to go back, see the atlas, find out the Iran, and see, because since Israel and Iran is going to be the news, the entire landscape that follows the particular two countries is going to be important for you. So here you can see, number one, Iran-Iraq share borders. Generally, they are in use for the same reason. It shares the border with Pakistan, and for that reason, we are trying to use a Chabahar through Iran because it shares border with Pakistan, but also with Afghanistan. That's why we are more interested in. So it does, and it shares border with Turkey as well. You can see that in a map. The country it doesn't share with it is Saudi Arabia. So that's the answer that you're going to remember. Next is pause for a moment and try to find the answer to this because we have discussed it today. The statement are, consider the following statement. Number one is GCP or Green Credit Program encourages organization and individual to invest in reforestation project on degraded forest in exchange for green credit. If you remember, this was exactly what I taught you in the class, that individual and organization are encouraged to basically invest in reforestation project for degraded forests, and ultimately they will earn green credits for this. So this was a definition. So of course the statement is correct. Second is green credit is actually single unit they earn through this process, which is an incentive for specified activity which causes a positive impact on environment. So that is a statement. Now that was the definition of green credit. Didn't I tell you that? So both the statement are correct. So the answer to this is going to be C. No, it's not going to be C, because the statement below it says that which of the following is incorrect. So your answer is going to be D, because both the statement are correct. So that's why you have to be very careful, because you think you read it and the statement is exactly as it is. So you would have marked C, but the answer is going to be D. Next is, Consider the following statement regarding the criteria for declaring heat waves in India. The first statement says the heat wave is declared in plains when the temperature reaches 40 degrees Celsius or above. That was the definition of heat wave, that there is a normal temperature, a particular temperature, a threshold temperature. When that crosses, the heat wave reaches, and that was different from plain, hilly areas as well as the other regions. So 40 degrees Celsius were decided for the plain. So if temperature reaches 40 or more, there is a condition of heat wave that can generate. And then there was a definition of normal, like proper heat wave threshold, I told you. Then there was a definition of normal heat wave, and then there was a definition of severe heat wave. If the temperature exceed from the 40 degrees Celsius temperature or the threshold temperature by 4.5 to 6.5 degrees Celsius temperature, then that is what? A normal heat wave. And you see the second statement, normal heat wave is declared when the temperature exceed 4.5 to 6.5 degrees Celsius above normal. So, of course, that is a definition. So, the statement 2 is also correct. Third is, the hill experiences a heat wave when the temperature exceeds 25 degrees Celsius. For the hill area, the normal temperature was 30 degrees Celsius. It is way below than the normal temperature. So, of course, it is not a condition for heat wave in the plain area. So, in this case, so what is going to be the answer? 2 and 3 are correct, but you don't see 2 and 3 because the question is how many statements are correct. So, 2 statements are correct over here. So, the answer is going to be B. Moving to next question, that is NDMA with regard to National Disaster Management Authority. Statement says NDMA is headed by Home Minister of India. Okay, we have multiple disaster management authority. One is for drought, other one is for cyclone, other one is for the management of floods, and they are headed by different different ministries. You should go back and read about them. But at least the authority that gives the guidelines for all of them, that is the National Disaster Management Authority, comes under the Prime Minister of India. So it is not Home Minister, it is Prime Minister. So the statement 1 is wrong. Second is it is the apex body for disaster management in India. That is true. And it is mandated to lay down policies, plans and guidelines for disaster management. It is a very general statement. So even if you hadn't read about this, you can definitely say the statement is correct. So in this case, the 2 statements are correct. And question again says how many statements are correct. So the answer is going to be what? 2 only. So answer here is B. Moving ahead, let's start with the mains practice question. It says a tribal conflict in India is the result of either poor implementation of government policy or narrow identification of tribes themselves. Do you agree with statement? If yes, then justify. That means if you do agree, then you have to give the statement in support of this particular of the question. So how will you approach this question? Number 1, in the introduction, you will talk about who are tribals. Since there is no legal definition of tribal, you can give a loose definition in terms of their primary economic activities, their political activities, their religion, etc. Certain feature that help identify as tribal, they are more secluded. So though definition is very contested still, but you can start with that. Once you're done with the introduction, then start with the connecting paragraph. Okay, and in connecting paragraph, you will start that they are suffering from multiple issues. You will talk about issues in 1 or 2 lines, and then you will talk about, that is body, in which we talk about reasons for the tribal suffering, and then you will divide it in 2 parts because the question has 2 parts. They suffer from either poor implementation of government policy. Then you will talk about how the government policies are not properly implemented. So first you can talk about the constitutional matters like the 6th schedule or 5th schedule are not properly implemented. Then you could talk about multiple laws as well. PSA, PESA, which provide the local self-government to them, is not implemented. You can also talk about the Forest Right Act and the various schemes as well. With the development activities of government has creating the displacement and disenchantment in case of tribal. They're leading to detribalization, displacement. You will talk about all of this, how the government policies, the poor or ineffective implementation is causing disenchantment in the tribals, the problems that they're suffering from. Also the development versus displacement, you can also talk about that. Second is, so at one hand you're going to blame the government, and on the second side you talk about how tribals themselves and their narrow identification and the parochial tendencies are also creating conflict. And then you can talk, take an example specifically in this, in the Koki Meeti conflict. You have to give example. Especially in case of Naga Kuki conflict, it's because of development related disparity. The government is bringing development, but it is creating disparity as well. And Kuki conflict or Kuki Meeti conflict is a result of that, and I've taught you today itself. So you will also talk about here the narrow identification in terms of identifying only with one particular tribe and then not able to see themselves as a larger picture of being all the tribe collectively suffering from something, the parochial tendencies, the demand for the constant demand for state and constant fragmentation of the northeast area is leading to conflict, violence, and because of this the development and investment is not being given much priority. So the second part you will deal about the identification or identity issues in tribal and how it is leading to conflict in a region. So you will see that you agreed with all of this statement. Of course, it's a statement you can easily agree. And then you have given an example to justify it as well. So, and overall, you will conclude by giving suggestion to this. So, suggestion will be make a balanced conclusion in terms of how the government need to work on this policy implementation. But at same point of a time, the state or people has to work on creating inter-tribal solidarity and reducing insecurities in tribes. So far, the tribal solidarity is really less because of this the government programs or policies are also not implemented effectively. So with this, we're done with today's video. If you have any doubt, you can definitely comment in comment section. And for more, stay tuned with Narayana IAS.